Hello, everybody. Welcome into today's show. We have a good one for you. As always, we've got a rare developing story type of show for you here today. As we're taking a look at the House vote on the debt limit, which is happening now as I speak. Not as we speak, since this is not a live episode of Newsflash. But we're going to take you through how that is going. They just literally a second ago, narrowly voted to pass through Kevin McCarthy's first bill in the House. This is going to be kind of an opening gambit. This is going to include several major cuts to major social programs, but he has managed to get a critical mass of that very small Republican caucus, still a majority, but a small majority Republican caucus on board. Meanwhile, E. Jean Carroll accuses Donald Trump of rape in a testimony. She had that today. In a really, really harrowing story of her encounter at a Bergdorf Goodman that ended her romantic life forever. Meanwhile, there's a new lawsuit, the first wrongful death case for helping a friend get an abortion, which is just taking place in Texas. A friend helped take this woman to another state to terminate an unplanned pregnancy. And both the friend and also probably the woman was hit with a wrongful death lawsuit as well. Really scary story. And also, we'll take a look at Florida versus Disney. Ron DeSantis versus Disney is how it's not going well for Big Ronnie. All right, we start off with the top of the show today. The House on Wednesday narrowly passed Republicans' bill to raise the debt ceiling while cutting spending and unraveling major parts of President Biden's domestic agenda, and a GOP bid to force the president to negotiate over spending cuts or risk a catastrophic debt default. So really what they're doing is, as you know here, they're really just using max leverage. They're really kind of exploiting all that they can in this specific situation, because they know that if an agreement is not reached by this upcoming summer, there will be a default on the debt, which will be a very, very severe. It'll essentially mean a series of domino ruinous effects for not just the American, but the global economy as well. And obviously, Republicans need Democratic votes for this. Democrats need to work together on this. They have some sort of leverage. The last time this happened was when there was a Democrat in the White House. Democrats had control of the Senate. Republicans had control of the House. This was back in 2011, right before 2012 presidential elections. Very similar story. And they used that. They eventually got to a bargain, but it got to be a really, really kind of brutal method of just essentially holding the global economy hostage for work requirements on Medicare and Medicaid, which the reason why they're doing this is because they have a very small portion of the House. They have a very, very small portion of the House Republican caucus kind of on the two extremes. Because you got people like moderates. One big example of moderate is Nancy Mace, who's a swing district. I think she voted for the impeachment of Trump, was one of the few people who did that and survived her re-election bid. She has a very interesting and kind of probably more hopeful, I guess, objective to some of the problems with she is really not, because a big part of this is what they're trying to do is they're trying to cut the EV tax credits. They're trying, or sorry, not the EV, but the electric credits, the green credits, part of the Inflation Reduction Act. But Nancy Mace, those really just benefit directly her district because there's a lot of green energy, green industry being put in her part of South Carolina, I guess. But I think what really is clear is that and it looks like in this vote they lost 4 Republicans, and I think if 3, if not all 4, were major members of the Tea Party, the House Freedom Caucus, all that. So what they wanted was something on the other side, which was they didn't think the kind of cut spending, slashing of programs, the making social programs harder to access. They did not think that went far enough. So Speaker McCarthy, in a big win, especially relative to how poorly he's fared, for example, in the Speaker vote, which was approved in a nail-biter 217 to 215 vote along party lines, with 4 Republicans voting against it. The legislation would raise the debt ceiling into next year in exchange for freezing spending at last year's levels for a decade, a nearly 14% cut, which is really pretty horrific. A decade, raise the debt ceiling into the next year. Again, this is all they're going to get. 1 year of this, really stupid, arbitrary limit being lifted from their head just because Republicans happen to have the power. In exchange for that, what they're going to do is they're going to completely cut key critical government programs. They're going to really decimate some of Biden's absolute top accomplishments. And all this is just in exchange for a year where they're going to be able to do the same thing to them again. 2024, right before the election. Now, actually, I don't know how smart this would be, but they could just hold it off till the summer of 2024, and really just wait, and just wait to do the same thing over again. Hypothetically, that is what they could do. And all this will be, in exchange, that is the only concession that Republicans are giving up in this deal. A 14% cut in government spending, and this is something that they're going to have to keep at the same level for 10 years. 10 years of a freeze on government spending is absolutely horrific government malpractice, because it just does not account for literally anything. It does not account for, it's just completely saying, why don't we let the, functions of the state, the functions of government absolutely fall to waste over 10 years, while the rich and powerful are just able to do absolutely anything that they could possibly want. That is the goal here. That is what is being done. And it's going to be interesting to see how, Joe Biden and the Democrats respond, because they do have, believe it or not, don't let them tell you otherwise, they do have a certain amount of power here. They do, control 2 out of 3 levers of government, or I guess obviously not branches of government, but levers of government, levers of power, at least in this situation. It's going to be rolling back key parts of Biden's landmark health, climate, and tax law, imposing work requirements on social programs, and expanding mining and fossil fuel production. Again, all the stuff that the big donors really want, and something that there has been some rebellions from some interesting points on some Republicans. But what this is going to do now is, the big thing is, they have passed this bill. The ball is going to be now in the court of Joe Biden and the Senate. Even Republicans stated their legislation was headed nowhere. Biden threatened to veto it, and the measure is obviously dead on arrival in the Democratic-led Senate. But without action by Congress to raise the statutory borrowing limit, the United States government faces a potentially catastrophic default as early as this summer. House Republicans regarded the vote as a crucial step to strengthening their negotiating position against Biden, amid questions about whether McCarthy would be able to unite his fractious conference to pass any fiscal outline at all. Their leaders pressed ahead with the vote even before it was clear that they would be able to muster the support needed for passage, essentially daring their remaining holdouts to tank the bill on the floor and risk undermining McCarthy's negotiating position. The gambit did work. So it was pretty smart for the holdouts to say, you want at least something here out of this debt ceiling play that we're doing. At least vote for my original bill, even if you're a psycho and you think we should just destroy the government for the fun of it, which some people like, Gates and Biggs, generally think along those lines. The vote came after Republican leaders revised the bill early Wednesday in hopes of nailing down the votes of a few crucial holdouts. McCarthy agreed to jettison a provision rolling back tax credits the Biden administration put in place for ethanol. There's a really hilarious video yesterday of a swarm of Iowa House Republicans that was going around, of them marching into Kevin McCarthy's office because of ethanol tax or ethanol subsidies. Because obviously, really what we do is just completely make it, we just completely give the, it's a weird, obviously weird reference given the situation, but we give the farm away to the ethanol and corn producers out in Iowa, for example. There's just, if you go up on, I think the only place to really be able to find it is on Twitter, and you type in Iowa House Republicans, and you look at some of the videos. it just shows a really just hilarious, like, just caucus of, like, I don't know, it's got to be like 10 of these members of the House and their staffers, I guess, just marching into McCarthy's office as they are having a plan to deal with ethanol. It's that at Olivia Beavers on Twitter is remarkable, because that just shows you, like, how it's going to work. It's like, hey, our sponsors, our patrons, the people who pay our campaign bills and fund our campaigns, they're getting pissed off. So this is what happens when we really do our job. It was a really remarkable scene. It was like almost like out of like a TV show such as Veep or something like that. So that the changes assuaged several Republicans there. So they are going to, rolling back tax credits by the Biden administration put in place for ethanol as demanded by a block of Midwesterners, and moved up by a year to 2024 the imposition of work requirements for Medicaid and food stamp recipients. Again, all the popular things that, I think Biden, if he were smart, would be absolutely seizing on right now, and especially in his freaking announcement video. I'm not talking about, the policy he gave up on first, which was voting rights, and the fight for the democracy, just rerunning of the 2020 campaign. But it is really remarkable that we see this taking shape the way it is. Four right-wing Republicans voted against the legislation, the most McCarthy could afford to lose and still have it pass. They were Andy Biggs and Matt Gaetz, two of McCarthy's chief antagonists in his prolonged fight to be elected speaker, as well as Ken Buck and Tim Burchett of Colorado and Tennessee, respectively. So two very, very hardcore people, very hardcore people. Speaker McCarthy, very disingenuously though, decided to tell reporters, "We've lifted the debt limit. We've done our job." Now the House Republicans, though, this is from Jim Tankersley of the New York Times, have succeeded in passing their bill to raise the debt limit while cutting spending and tax breaks by $4.8 trillion over the decade. Biden has lost a talking point. He will no longer be able to refuse fiscal policy negotiations on the ground that Republicans have not made a budget offer. Biden will not, however, suddenly agree to haggle with Speaker McCarthy over the borrowing limit to avoid an economically catastrophic default. So it's going to kind of come down to a game of chicken. Maybe Biden may try and pick off some very moderate Republicans to kind of pass through the House with Democratic support. We don't know. The president's aides say publicly and privately that Biden will continue to insist that Republicans raise the limit without conditions. Even so, there's debate ranging inside the administration over when and how to advance ostensibly separate talks with McCarthy over taxes, spending, and debt. If the Republican bill passes, the president will be under mounting pressure to find a way to strike an agreement with the speaker on fiscal issues before the government exhausts its ability to continue paying all its bills on time, which could come as soon as June. So that is going to, it was a very interesting framing there, because it's like it really puts Biden again as the person under pressure, the person who really needs to act reasonable and get his act together. But like Kevin McCarthy is being completely controlled, A, by the House Tea Party, and B, controlling the fate of the American and really the global economy for 10 years of Medicare and Medicaid work requirements. That is just really some remarkable stuff. It is, and that I think is the way that Biden should really be framing it as. Not that, we just or say nothing, and this is kind of Democratic strategy is say nothing and let the media frame things for you. They have to say that McCarthy is being absolutely ludicrous here, and really just point out the absurdity of what he's doing, because they have the ability to do it. They have the bully pulpit to do it, but will they use it? Almost certainly no. Few in Washington expect Biden to hold the line through the summer. White House officials have been pushing business leaders and other interest groups to lobby House Republicans on raising the limit with little success. Senate Democrats, most notably, of course, Joe Manchin of West Virginia. Honestly, I am rooting for his Republican opponent now, because it's like at this point there should not be. It's not natural for there to be a Democrat in the Democratic caucus in West Virginia. Like, try and win North Carolina or something. Try and do something else, because it's just not sustainable. Like John Tester, for example, does a better job. In a pretty red state, there could be a better. I think it's still possible for someone with to win smartly with a lot of resources to put up a pretty solid fight. If they can do it in North Dakota, if they can do it in West Virginia. But what I really think is just absolutely crazy is the fact that we continue to still have to tolerate and deal with Manchin and Sinema. And if I were a Democrat, I would just want them getting out of politics as soon as possible, like by any means necessary. And Sinema and hopefully Manchin will be both headed for the exits by 2025, which would be pretty ideal. All right, so with that being said, it's time to now move to our next story. Pretty crazy, pretty scary situation. This is from Benjamin Weiser, Lola Fadulu, and Kate Christebeck. This is talking about E. Jean Carroll. She testified today in a Manhattan courtroom on Wednesday relating to a harrowing story of being raped by Donald J. Trump in the mid-1990s as the former president, who declined to attend the trial, railed against her on social media, infuriating the judge overseeing the case. Carroll's wrenching testimony stood in stark contrast to the former president's posting, in which he called her a made-up scam. Called her case a made-up scam, and a fraudulent and false story, and led the judge, Louis A. Kaplan, to suggest that Trump was trying to improperly influence the jury. It was the second day of the trial in a lawsuit by Ms. Carroll against Trump, brought under a new law in New York that allows sexual assault victims to sue the people they say abuse them, even if the statute of limitations has long expired. And Trump vehemently denies these allegations. I'm here because Donald Trump raped me, and when I wrote about it, he said it didn't happen. Carroll said after shortly taking the witness stand, he lied and shattered my reputation, and I'm here trying to get my life back. And clearly, this is someone who has had her absolutely, Donald Trump, electorally, whatever, are these allegations really gonna probably cut through or whatever? It's horrific to say that they probably won't, but like the fact is that this is honestly, that should not matter, because this is a person who was clearly horrifically abused by Trump in this situation, and her life clearly has just never been the same. Like, she has had her life absolutely destroyed. Really just been, according to this testimony, she said, my romantic life ended right here and there. If I meet a man who's a possibility, it's impossible for me to even look at him and smile, Carroll said. Carroll's lawyers are asking the jury in the federal district court to find Trump liable for battery and defamation, and if he is found responsible, to award monetary damages, which, obviously it's not what he really deserves, especially if they find him guilty here, but it is something to say that he could be, in a court convicted of, someone who accused him of rape wins the case. It's going to be a very, very big deal if that does happen. And it's just, yeah. And the fact that, this is the kind of punishment he gets for this clear crime is really kind of his testament to the state of our country at this point. But Carroll's lawyers, they are really going for defamation as well. She's a former magazine columnist. She has said nothing publicly about the encounter for decades before publishing a memoir in 2019 that accused Trump of attacking her. Trump has accused Carroll of lying and attacked her repeatedly in public statements, both on social media, in public statements and on social media, both in office and after leaving. Carroll testified that she had told two of her friends about the attack. One friend, Lisa Birnbach, told her that she had been raped and that she needed to go to the police. The second friend, Carol Martin, told her not to tell anyone because Trump was too powerful and had a team of lawyers that would bury her. Judge Kaplan pressed lawyer Takapina to say whether Trump would testify in person after he said the defense intended to play portions of the former president's video deposition. Takapina said he was not sure. The judge said he would have to have an answer this week, adding that the uncertainty was an imposition on court security and staff. Court will resume at 10 a.m. Thursday with Carroll on the stand, and she's expected to face cross-examination from Trump's lawyers. So really going to be a situation to watch there very closely, and a really horrific story, nevertheless. All right, we go now to another really horrific and scary story. Sign of potentially things to come, almost certainly things to come. First abortion-related lawsuit coming out of Texas.
This ain't what you want. Project. This ain't what you want. This ain't what you want.
You're listening to Newsflash right here on the Spencer Walsh Radio Network. Help us grow our audience. Subscribe, rate, and review our show on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. Thank you very much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we move now on to our next story, and it was a pretty crazy situation coming out of Texas, and we saw yesterday there was a certain very famous conservative commentator who got divorced yesterday. He was talking about how Texas has, these. It really just saying he was apparently pissed off that Texas now has no fault divorces, and a woman can choose to leave him if he wants. Also a woman can choose to, or at least could choose to, in the past, have aborted their baby. This is an Intercept, a really remarkable story from Mary Tuma. Your help means the world to me, said a grateful Brittany Silva to her friends Jackie Noila and Amy Carpenter last July. I'm so lucky to have you all here, really. A month after the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, the Houston mother of two experienced an unplanned pregnancy with her now ex-husband. This was, again, last summer, obviously, and allegedly sought abortion care with the help of her friends. For nearly a year, Texas had imposed a 6-week abortion ban, and a full trigger ban would be enacted in just a few weeks. Silva needed to act fast and extricate herself from what appeared to be an emotionally unhealthy relationship with the husband. She would go on to divorce in February. Her friends offered their unwavering support. I just worry about your emotional state, wrote Carpenter, who had advocated Silva to remove herself from her husband, according to court documents. He'll be able to snake his way into your head. I know either way he will use it against me, Silva said of her pregnancy. If I told him before, which I'm not, he would use it as a way to try and stay with me, and after the fact, I know he'll try and act like he has some right to the decision. Delete all conversations from today, Noila said. You don't want him looking through it. And of course, not only did Marcus Silva access the private conversations his ex-wife had with her friends, he also filed an unprecedented lawsuit in March accusing Carpenter, Loyola, and Texas abortion right activist Araceli Garcia of wrongful death, alleging the trio conspired to assist his ex-wife obtain medication to terminate her pregnancy with a self-managed abortion. Attorneys for Silva also hope to, quote, sue into oblivion the manufacturer of the abortion pills procured. The complaint filed in state court in Galveston County seeks a stunning $1 million in damages from each of these women who are, by the way, they're not, very particularly wealthy women by any stretch. These are just working class, normal everyday people. In the first lawsuit of its kind since Roe was struck down, the legal filing, riddled with sensitive information, instills a chilling effect on anyone who wishes to assist in abortion care, raising the threat of surveillance and public scrutiny, legal experts say. Filed by an influential conservative legal figure, the lawsuits who also offers a window into the anti-abortion movement's growing push for fetal personhood. The only people they actually want to give rights to are people who are not even alive. The lawsuit claims that aiding a self-managed abortion is tantamount to murder under state law. So again, this is something that, for the longest time, because it was clearly so unpopular, it was so weird, if you said it, people, pro-choice people would say the pro-life people, do you think women should be thrown in jail for abortions, or trying to get abortions, or trying to help women get abortions? Well, and people are like, oh no, I don't think that's really right. Like, they would kind of hedge about it, but now we are seeing their most wild fantasies, their biggest dreams, their craziest fantasies in the middle of the night. Throughout the last however many years, how many decades they've been working to get this Roe v. Wade overturned. You have really seen all of that come true in a pretty horrific way with this, and it's punishment. It's equating it to murder, and it's saying these women, not even just the woman who has it, not even the doctor who provides it, but the people who help, should be forced to pay a price, a pretty heavy price at that. Alleged abortion occurred prior to the enactment of the state's criminal trigger ban, which makes performing an abortion a felony punishable by up to life in prison. Marcus Silva's attorney appeared to rely on Texas's pre-Roe criminal ban, a 1925 statute that penalizes anyone who furnishes the means for abortion with up to 10 years in prison. The status of the antiquated law is murky. In July, the Texas Supreme Court temporarily ruled in a case filed by abortion providers the law could only be enforced civilly. Earlier this year, U.S. District Judge Robert Pittman ruled that law was obsolete, as it had been repealed by implication following Roe, by finding that reaffirmed a 2004 Fifth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals ruling. Some legal experts consider the lawsuit's argument highly tenuous. Since Brittany Silva is immune from prosecution, her alleged abortion shouldn't be considered a crime, leaving no basis to bring a wrongful death suit. For this to be a wrongful death, you would have to have committed the criminal act, and because the pregnant person cannot be charged for homicide for her self-managed abortion, it's not criminal, said Joanna Grossman, a gender and family law professor at Southern Methodist University. So there's no reason to think what her friends did to help is facilitating crime. The suit might be easy to write off if it weren't for the figure behind it. It was Jonathan F. Mitchell, who's a former Texas Solicitor General and architect of the state's 6-week abortion ban, Senate Bill 8. Mitchell filed the complaint along with Republican Representative Briscoe Cain and the Thomas More Society, a legislative law firm known for pushing anti-abortion bills through litigation. He's been dubbed by some as a brilliant legal mind, which is pretty easy if you have, an entire, very well-funded army working to bend the court system to your will. Mitchell has a pretty prolific background litigating right-wing cases, including anti-LGBTQ, anti-union, anti-abortion lawsuits. Former law clerk for the late U.S. Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, Mitchell has sided the Federalist Society, a group line with the court's right-wing bloc. Mitchell's legal crusades are often successful, and he recently repealed an anti-LGBTQ Texas activist who struck down a nationwide Obamacare provision that required insurance companies to cover a range of preventative care services, including HIV prevention measures such as PrEP. While reticent in the public spotlight, Mitchell has developed a reputation as a powerful actor behind the scenes, namely for crafting the novel legal provision at the heart of Texas' SB 8 enacted in 2021 as a result of this is the vigilante provision at the beginning of the fall of 2021 that came out. I remember this. He helped mastermind a string of local sanctuary for the unborn ordinances, almost like based off the sanctuary city principle almost, which become the blueprint for SB 8, compelling cities to declare themselves abortion-free by imposing similar civil enforcement mechanism. The ordinances would proliferated to 65 towns across the U.S. Also sought to revive the Comstock Act, which is an archaic law that has emerged as the next weapon of the arsenal of the anti-abortion movement. Mitchell also crafted the novel legal provision that allows private citizens to act as vigilantes and sue abortion providers or anyone who aids or abets the procedure. So that's kind of the guy who's really behind this all. And they will keep going. They will never stop until all this stuff is taken away from women who really, really need it and just made as unsafe and as dangerous and as punitive as possible. And, the only way you can do it is to really just be aware of what's happening and really muster a full response. All right, let's go now to our last story. Pretty good one out of Disney in Florida, out of Florida in general. Disney is, I guess, not a place, it's a company. I mean, Disney World or Land, I guess. But anyway, Walt Disneyland or company is suing Florida Governor Ron DeSantis over what it calls a relentless campaign to weaponize government power, a major escalation of years-long clash between the entertainment giant and conservative governor. The lawsuit filed on Wednesday in the U.S. District Court for Northern District of Florida came after the same day the government's hand-picked board declared a Disney-friendly trust null and void. So I don't know if we actually talked about this on the show, but the way it works, the way this has worked with Disney is really for a long time. Ron DeSantis, because Disney is too woke, has hated Disney, tried to take control over Disney by getting rid of their special district that exempted them from all taxes. And Disney obviously was very, very unhappy about that. But just before their administrative board of their special district, which is obviously controlled all by Disney, just before they had to give up power, they ceded all of their power legally back to Disney. So by the time the GOP got in there, the Florida, DeSantisites got back in there, they had essentially no power. And what have they done now with this big legal L Disney has handed them? They have ruled it null and void. So Disney has decided to sue them. Lawsuit filed on Wednesday in the U.S. District Court of Northern Florida came the same day as the governor's handpicked board declared a Disney-friendly deal null and void. Disney and DeSantis' office have been tussling privately for the past year, but the frequency and intensity of their sparring has intensified dramatically in recent days. A standoff, which could have some pretty major political and economic consequences, began in early 2022 when Disney leaders criticized a controversial, this is again the Don't Say Gay bill. DeSantis has really tried to dissolve that special district, but that move quickly caused concerns about what would happen with the Disney's tax and debt burden, because they have a lot of taxes that they haven't quite paid, they have a lot of debt they haven't quite paid, and of course they're a billion-dollar corporation, multi-billion-dollar corporation. They're fine, but if you go to some random county next door, they're going to be absolutely crushed by it, and it's going to go all on the civilians. So yeah, they could have been forced to raise taxes on property owners to pay for what Disney's district used to fund, such as roads and other services. DeSantis ordered another special session in February to address that issue by keeping the tax district, but replacing the board selected by Disney, called the Reedy Creek Improvement District, with a new panel. DeSantis chose the 5 new board members and called the agency the Central Florida Tourism Oversight Board. When the new board first held its meeting in March, though, this is obviously the trick that Disney pulled. Members said they discovered that the outgoing Disney board had handed over most of their power to Disney, and that's what they voted to overturn on Wednesday. Local business owners who run cafes and restaurants on Disney's property and nearby residents pleaded with the new board Wednesday to end the feud, said it can't afford to pay higher taxes. The board said will be necessary to pay legal fees, and the idea floated by the governor, such as the new toll roads within Disney's property, would be a burden on their employees who are already making below minimum wage. A lot of them have to be homeless. Mark Gibson, who owns 3 businesses at Disney, says he's voted for DeSantis twice, but finds the battle with Disney worrisome. And again, if this was supposed to be the biggest kind of feather in his presidential cap, and he has fallen flat on his face, and it just really shows you he is really all talk, all show, no hype, no action, no tough guy. Like, because Trump had, when he was running, he already had the established reputation as a tough guy, someone who knew what he was doing, who was a business titan. As fake as it was, there was so many images of him sitting across this big, long mahogany table, negotiating, talking to someone, really just getting in someone's face. Like, that image was already there, and DeSantis, he was trying to cultivate this as an image as a fighter, a conservative fighter against the woke or whatever, and he can't even do that against Disney. That is a big, big deal, and he's just really pissing his own supporters off and hurting them economically, while also getting completely owned by woke Disney, which is going to hurt in a lot of ways. Disney's Magic Kingdom, located near Orlando, is considered the busiest theme park in the world, drawing nearly 13 million visitors in 2021. Its Animal Kingdom is also a top draw, attracting more than 7 million people that year, according to AECOM and the Themed Entertainment Association. In its legal complaint, Disney accused DeSantis of punishing it for its protected speech. How about that? Threatening its business operations, jeopardizing its economic future in the region, and violating its constitutional rights. Because, again, Republicans, corporations such as Disney, do have constitutional rights. Having exhausted efforts to seek a resolution, the complaint said the company is left with no choice to file this lawsuit to protect its cast members, guests, and local development partners from a relentless campaign to weaponize government power against Disney in retaliation for expressing a political viewpoint unpopular with certain state officials. DeSantis spokeswoman called Disney's lawsuit another unfortunate example of their hope to undermine the will of Florida voters and circumvent state law. We started off with a criticism over a controversial, "Don't Say Gay" bill. Really has been, it's been a bit of a tug of war, developed into a real tug of war, essentially a war itself between 2 of the state's most powerful entities, being Disney and the state government. Matt Roseboom, meanwhile, the editor and publisher of Attractions magazine, which covers Disney and other theme parks, says that Disney and DeSantis feud has not impacted visitors to the Florida park. The average guest that's coming to Disney probably hasn't heard anything about the feud, or probably has heard something about the feud, but it's not affecting anything. The new board says it may have to raise taxes for Disney to pay for the attorneys to fight the company in court. DeSantis has floated the idea of building another theme park on Disney property, or even a state prison. But the notion seems far-fetched. I think everyone's pretty confident Disney is not going to have a prison inside the Magic Kingdom, he said. I think they're just making a joke out of it right now. Pretty good guess there, Mr. Roseboom there, making a pretty astute observation. And on that note, we will return on Friday.